Township Pattern was formed in 1997. We are over 20 years now, and it's a woman-owned enterprise or a social impact enterprise. We work with women in the local communities in Cape Town between Khayelitsha and Menenberg. We have about 50 women who own their own co-ops. And Township assists them in terms of skills development and owning the equipment that they use. So as Township, we use eco-friendly fabric. Cotton is coming from either Zimbabwe or Madagascar, and then we also use recycled plastic bottle fabric, which is PET, that is sourced in South Africa. So our also main goal is also to empower our own community in terms of using African product and eco-friendly material as well.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just so excited to be back in the studio today talking about all things fair trade. Once again, this is our 6th session. My name is Wageshi Getata Kiriga, and I'm a senior advisor at Kijani Group based here in Nairobi, Kenya. And I've had the pleasure of hosting all of these different discussions about all things fair trade with WFTO, World Fair Trade Organization. So we've had 5 different sessions. Today is our last one. It's our 6th session. And it's really talking about people over profit. What does that really mean? And so I have the pleasure of having in the studio today 3 guests. We have Peter Swart, who is the co-founder of Turkle Trading, and we're going to hear from Peter in just a little bit. I also have Musa Mpofu, who is part of World Fair Trade Organization. She's based in South Africa. And I have my fellow Kenyan-based guest today, who is Bernard, who is regional director of World Fair Trade Organization, and he's based here in Nairobi. But before we hear from all of them, I think that it's really good to recap some of the things that we've been talking about, and to also just thank all the different guests that we've had the pleasure of talking with over these different sessions. So we had Darren from Kapula. Kapula is a South African fair trade business. They export all over the world. They have their factory in South Africa. They even have some of their products available locally in the South African market. We had Fred from Undugu Shops. Undugu Shops is based here in Kenya, and one of the earlier, and if not one of the first fair trade organizations on the continent. We had Rain from Turkle Trading, where Peter is from, and we had some great conversations with Rain about how to just really make these fair trade consumer decisions, how do we make them realistic in our context? And she was there and fantastic. We also had the pleasure of having Morgan from Township Patterns. That's the video we just watched. And she was talking about, where you can get some of their bags. We had Jacinta and Martin from Machakos Cooperative Union, and that's based here in Kenya. They do both coffee and handicrafts. We had Sammy from Kazuri Beads. Kazuri does all these ceramic things, and they get the shout outs quite often because their stuff is easy to find, to be honest. And there's and that's part of this conversation, right? How can we get more fair trade products in the local market? I'm wearing Kazuri beads again today. Shout out to Kazuri. We had Masimbonge, who is based in South Africa. He's a young farmer who actually has his background in mechanical engineering. And now he's decided to go back to his roots, so to speak, and farm. And he's doing fantastic work. And he's not only inspiring himself and all those people who follow him, but also he's provided employment. He's this young guy who can't be more than I think he's in his mid-20s, and he's doing fantastic stuff and just getting on board and just being part of this solution of how do we create youth employment? How do we make agriculture cool? He's definitely definitely managed to do that part. We also had Tatiana Karanja, who's based here in Nairobi. It was really cool because she was actually talking to us from the Kazuri factory, and it was good to be able to just see everything happening in action. So thank you to all the previous guests we have. Thank you so much to the people who are in the studio today. And because if you've been listening, you know I can talk a lot. I'm going to stop now and give everybody a chance to tell us a little bit about themselves and the organizations they represent. So Peter, Karibu, welcome to the studio, and tell us about you and the different hats that you wear, and a little bit more about Terkel Trading.
Yeah, Karibu Wangezi. Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Peter Swart. I'm one of the co-founders of Terkel Trading. We're based in Cape Town in South Africa. We specialize in food products, the best food products that you can get. We use only as much as possible natural ingredients, no preservatives or additives or anything like that. We started in 1997, so been around for a while and grew with our producer partners. Currently, we supply into South Africa as well as export most of the produce. With our producer partners, we range from farmers to small producers to hand-harvested salt producers. We create employment for about 860 odd people at the present moment.
That's a big number.
Yeah, well, unemployment in South Africa, unfortunately, is absolutely sky high. So every job that we can create and that a sustainable job that pays a decent, fair living wage, that is our whole reason for being. A few of my other hats, I have been on the WFTO Africa and Middle Eastern board since 2011, and since 2015. I am the Africa and Middle Eastern representatives on the Global World Fair Trade Organization board, and currently as well the treasurer of WFTO. So yeah, that is sort of in a nutshell. And I'm a passionate fair trader and a passionate food nut.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Peter. I think we're going to have some great conversations, especially about all those different hats that you're wearing, and even just to have your perspective really on this, the impetus of this discussion, which is really how can we have more of, fair trade products available in the global South, because we do see this as a growing market. And that's part of this discussion, but also keeping in mind that you've talked about the fact that you've got all these people that are employed as parts of Terkel and all the different work that Terkel is doing. But you said something that was really key, which was that every job counts, but especially when that job can provide a sustainable and fair wage. So I think that that's really the heart of today's topic, where people are being chosen over profits. And I'm going to segue to Bernard to tell us a little bit more about why WFTO. And of course, a little bit about yourself for today's audience. Please, Bernard.
Thanks, Wangechi, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be in this final session of this conversation we have had for the last 2 weeks, more or less. My name is Bernard. I work for WFTO at the region office for Africa and the Middle East. I've been part of fair trade movement for a long time, probably around 15 years now. But I've been serving in this position for the last almost 90 years now. And so it's just been a good journey. And WFTO, of course, is a global network of fair trade enterprises, both the people who are producing products, but also the people who are buying the same products, linking them with the consumers, traditionally in the global north. But of course, part of the reason we're having this conversation is to appreciate that we can also find market in our domestic market in the global south. And yes, at the moment, of course, WFTO has members in almost 20 countries in the continent, including the Middle East. And as we push on the demand for fair trade products in the global south, of course, we are also interested to grow the membership, the enterprises that begin to integrate fair trade practices in their businesses, so that we can meet the supply of the sort of demand that we want to create. So happy to be part of this. Thanks a lot.
Welcome. Karibu sana. Thank you, Bernard. Now, Musa, she's been my co-host, sometimes reluctantly, but she's been my co-host. And please go ahead, Musa, and tell us a little bit more about yourself, but also why you're so excited about fair trade. Tell us.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to our last session. My name is Musa Mpofu. I'm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I work for WFTO Africa and Middle East, currently working on a project that's based here in South Africa and Nairobi, looking at increasing the footprint of fair trade in the global south. And I think this is a very important conversation to have because looking at the changes that are happening, first of all, after COVID, and trying to build back better. And the intra-Africa trade, we need to become more fair trade conscious. We need to increase the consumption of fair trade products in the global south. And so this project aims at educating the consumer on fair trade and also making the consumer more aware of the power that they have on what they buy in the shops, and trying to get them to activate that power, because in the global south, we find many a time the consumer is a victim of the managers' choices. And we need to get to a place where we as consumers tell the purchasing managers what we want on the shelves, make them buy more ethical products, know what we are buying, who made what I am wearing, who made what I am eating, and all those things. So I'm very happy to be part of this conversation and looking forward to activating people.
Yay, I like that. And you know, when we had the very first conversation, when we started this series, Musa, you said something that I'm going to say it again. And because I think for me, it just really speaks to what we're trying to do here. And you said, be your brother's keeper, right? And that's really what the conversation is about today. How do we put people over profit? And what does that mean? And it's so good to have Peter on this panel because, you know, you're a businessman. You've been in this process for as long as you have. You know, you've created employment. You've impacted directly impacted all the households that your employees come from. But more than that, all those have been business decisions. But what has driven some of those business decisions? And can we talk a little bit about that? What makes being a fair trade business different from, what differentiates it? What makes it different from, what we call conventional business? Or what makes it different from, let's say, a social enterprise? Or is a social enterprise a fair trade business? I don't know. Let's tell us what your take is on that.
Wangezi, yes. I think the main difference probably lies in most normal commercial businesses. The only people you're answerable to are the shareholders, and therefore profit stands right at the top. And the people are, well, you need them in order to produce and to sell the stuff, but that is sort of where it stops. The converse of that in terms of fair trade is it is people plus planet plus profit equals prosperity. And that is what the end goal is, that people can prosper, that people can grow. From our side in Turkle Trading, it has been right from the word go, that it is a people first organization. And yes, it means at times you had to make hard decisions between, yes, you want to grow the business, but on the other hand, you want to grow people. Right. And we always liken fair trade, certainly, and the way that you can choose to do business, because it is a choice ultimately. It's like growing a garden. You have to plant the seeds, you have to nurture them. Some things will grow very quickly and other things will take longer. And that is exactly how you deal with the people as well. That some people will grasp the concept, they will grasp the opportunity, and they will grow very quickly. Others, again, need the more intensive or longer term support, guidance, just showing that there are different ways of doing things. And one of the things, I mean, we talk about where people go over profit, and the COVID situation has really brought that into focus. Where if you look at most commercial businesses, the minute that things went into lockdowns and shops closed, they literally cancelled orders, lock, stock, and barrel, even where orders were on or deferred payments and things like that. Most fair trade businesses and buyers said, how can we help? They either increased orders, they confirmed orders. In some cases, which I'm aware of, they said, we will pay 100% upfront, in terms of that you have not only sufficient funds to do the production, but that you would also have sufficient funds to pay salaries, to keep people in jobs.
Wow.
I look at it from our own organization. We had so many offers from people to say, can we help you as a business? But similarly, can we help the people that you work with? Are there COVID-specific things, from being able to provide face masks to, if there are people that were positive, to provide some of the funds to that they can get best medical care? And that is the essence of what it means to belong to some organization like the WFTO, that you become part of that family. And family, as Musa says, you become your brother or your sister's keeper. It's not a question of just, well, I'm doing well, so that's great. It is, who's the next person in line? How do I take care of my family? Because it does become a family, ultimately.
Right. I mean, and you know, you bring up a point about, you know, the fact that, you know, COVID, especially with the lockdown, you know, South Africa had a very strict lockdown, as did Kenya, although I think yours was probably a bit stricter than ours. And especially those initial months were really, really difficult. So it's really comforting to hear that that you had other businesses looking to say, how can we support the work that you're doing? How can we make sure that Turquoise remains afloat, because it's directly impacting all these different people that are working for the organization? But to have, you know, even orders being paid up front, and you're right, that is the difference. As you said, it's a choice, right? So where businesses are able to, because you're still making money, you're still, the margin may not be as high as conventional trade, but it's still a sustainable business. It's still the trade end of this discussion, and that is a thing that also makes this different. It's not it's not one of those things where something is being handed out. People are working, and they're working hard, and they're working diligently and with dignity to be able to put all these different things on our table. So I'm going to pivot that to you, Musa, because we've been talking a lot about you know, consumer power. What do you see the role of the consumer in this discussion? How do you see consumers helping businesses sort of push towards this direction of people over profit?
As I said earlier, Wangeshi, I think the problem in the global south is that as the consumer, we've been conscientized or socialized to think that what is on the shelf is the only choice that I have. And we need to get to a place where consumers realize that actually I have an impact on what is stocked by my local supermarket. I can tell my local supermarket that I want ethically produced products. I want products that have been made using a certain standard. I'm not going to buy a $2 t-shirt, as Peter talked about earlier, because then how much is the person who made the t-shirt getting? You need to start to think about these things. Like, if I'm paying 2 Rand, 10 Rand, 12 Rand for a t-shirt, how much is the person who made the t-shirt getting? 10 cents. Yeah. What are they doing with 10 cents today, 2020? What will I do with 10 cents? I have 4 kids at home who are waiting for food, who need school fees, who need clothes to wear. I need to make sure I pay the rent, I pay electricity, I pay water. 10 cents for a t-shirt?
Yeah. So I think it's. Sorry, Musa, go ahead.
So we need to, as consumers, you need to realize the power that you have, that you have the right, you have the power to say, I don't want to buy this thing because it's ridiculously cheap and I don't know where it's coming from and I don't know how much the person who made it is getting. Be your brother's keeper. If you want to make sure that your brother has a job, you need to promote the products that your brother is making. There's no way that you're in maintaining your brother's job by buying products that are not fairly produced, that are not sustainably made. We need to become aware as consumers of what we are doing, the purchasing choices that we're making, the impact that they have.
So Bernard, we're talking about fair trade, the fact that Musa is challenging all of us to look out for products that have been ethically produced, right? How do consumers go about this? Tell us a little bit more about, what's out there. What should they be looking out for? Is there something about these different products that's going to tell us, hey, this one has been verified, and we know that it is ethically and sustainably sourced?
Yes, if you're a consumer outside there who's looking for an ethically produced product or a sustainable product, from the point of view WFT, of course, we have a product label, so that if you have gone through the process until you are verified, that you can put that label on your product, and that will show you that yes, this product that I'm about to buy speaks to the sort of values that they stand for, and of course, where there are no, we also have possibility that you'll find the product in specific shops that are owned by fair trade enterprises. In Nairobi, for example, you can walk to shops that are owned by Kazuri, for example, or One Way. The same in South Africa, you can walk to a shop that is run by Rain Africa. So these are possibilities that consumers have, but of course we are looking forward also to grow these possibilities so that consumers got ready access to the products. Right. So when you see a product that has these labels, then it speaks to you that this product has gone through a process and it represents something. So it's not just a claim that a business will make on their own.
Right. I mean, and I think what you said there is quite important. The fact that there are certain processes that businesses have to go through in order to be able to put that label. And here, I have it for the sake of our audience. Can you guys see? There it is. Yeah. Do I have it right? The camera thing is a bit weird to try and get you to see it properly. But this is the WFTO label. And this particular ceramic mug is made by one of the fair trade enterprises here called Kazuri Beads. They do ceramic stuff, and like I said, I'm wearing their earrings today. But the reason why fair trade matters truly is around the fact that when you say people over profit, it means something. It truly means something. And we have a video from one of the cooperatives that are in South Africa that work with township patterns. And I just want you guys to watch that and just be able to see the difference that it makes to people's lives, and even just the dignity that they have in being part owners of this process. So I want you guys to watch this video from Hope.
My name is Shaida Kasim. I'm staying in Menenberg, working for New Hope, and I'm here 4 years now. Okay, when I started New Hope, I was working for a previous co-op. Then I decided that I want to open New Hope. Okay, the difference between township and the factory is where you work in the factory, you're working for the boss. And for working for township is to be an independent co-op and to see that you can work for yourself. Yes, I do create more jobs in the community, and if there is enough equipment I have and there is enough work, yes, I will give some work for the community.
Thanks for that. So, I mean, I think that there's so much to take away from that. You know, whether it's really just looking at how this collaboration within the supply chain has made such a big difference, because you've got township that is sourcing locally from these different cooperatives, right? You've got these women who are setting up additional cooperatives and acting as suppliers for township patterns, so that they themselves, as cooperative members, are actually owners of their businesses. So you have both the idea of employment being created, but you also have sustainable trade. And the reason why Township Patterns has opted to design their business model in this way is because they have decided that they're really going to truly put people over profit. Before we started today's live session, we were having a very interesting discussion around, how is this working in reality? How is this idea of people over profit working? And, is it possible that someone can just make the claim? It may be true. We're not disputing that, right? That they say, listen, I'm doing all these things right. I'm providing a decent wage. We're not harming the environment in what we're doing. These are the working conditions of all my employees. I'm fantastic. So I don't need to be part of something like World Fair Trade Organization or any of these other voluntary standards, because I know what I'm doing. And here is what we have on our site about all this stuff that we're doing. And so there was that debate about, well, what does that mean? How does this fit in terms of the voluntary standards that are there? And so I'm going to start with Peter with that question of, what difference does it make, right? To be part of a verifiable process, to have some of these voluntary standards, and because they require a process, and why go through that process when you can just simply say that, you know what, I'm doing good, and I know I'm doing good, and so that's enough. Why be part of these standards?
Lizzie, I think in today's world, there is a lot of what's called greenwashing. And with communication being so easy, I can put anything on my website and say, well, look, I'm the greatest and the this and the that. And I'm sure there are many businesses that do it honestly, that really are trying to make a difference. And whether that is by choice or whether it is that they do not know about the organizations that do exist. But I do think having external independent third-party verification, and in our specific case, where it is measured against the 10 main internationally accepted fair trade principles, that is what you are measured against. And it goes from things like child labor through to fair wages, through to decent working conditions, through to caring for the environment. It also helps from a purely commercial point of view, you to get into markets, because if you arrive at a buyer or a category manager or store owner or whatever the case happens, depending on the type of product that you do, with that label on your product, they can buy from you with the assurance knowing you have gone through this rigorous process of external verification of all the claims you make. And essentially, in the short term, it basically says to them, we've done the work for you, you do not have to do it. If a consumer has any questions, there is an organization behind this label that can either answer, can verify, so that you do not have to try and deal with the uncomfortable questions about where is this made, how is it made, what was the person paid. And I think is the main benefit. So it's both from a really putting people before profit side of things where you make the choice as a business owner, but secondly as well, there are definite business advantages both to you as the producer, the seller, but as well the buyer, and ultimately the consumer. The consumer can buy with confidence knowing that they are supporting a business sometimes on the other side of the world or in domestic fair trade on the other side of the country. And it is a choice that we then make easier for the consumer to be able to distinguish and say, I choose to buy this product because of this label on it, and I know the money is going to where it is needed most. And I think that, in short, is the benefits of it.
I mean, and absolutely, because, in Kenya, we have on our coat of arms, we have something that's written Harambee, right? And Harambee in the Kenyan context means, it's a Swahili word for pulling together. But I was reading somewhere, and I don't know if you know this, Bernard, that apparently it also it sounds very similar to a word that was a Hindi word that was being used by the people who came to build the railway, right? By all, the Indians who came to build the railway, that they used to use that as a calling cry when they were pulling together. And it's something to do with, I think I don't want to mix it up because I could get into trouble here, but it's something to do with asking the spirit of Krishna to help you pull together. And so that I thought was a very interesting meeting of the same word, which means this collaboration, which means pulling together. And so, and it's the same spirit within fair trade, where we're saying, let's pull together to make this happen, right? Let's pull together because as people, we're able to collectively move forward. And especially if we remain with people-centered leadership and people-centered business, and especially when we're having this discussion about building back better. So if somebody wants to build back better and they're trying to make sure that their business is reflecting these things that hopefully they're already doing, how do they then become part of this fair trade conversation? Musa, could you give us a little bit more information about if there's some businesses out there that want to be part of this? How do they go about it?
Can I bounce the question to Bernard?
Okay, sure. Go for it.
My goodness, Musa, why are you running away from the question? It is. Because
I think you will answer it much better.
I mean, there's a process behind joining WFT, for example, or in any other fair trade network, and of course Peter made a reference to the 10 principles, that is the Bible as it was for us, the 10 commandments that we have to comply with. And to be honest with you, these requirements are not they are not foreign. They are not too hard to follow. They are the things that we do every day. And sometimes when you talk about certification, people get scared. And the experience we have had with WFTO is that the system has been modeled in a way that it is manageable for small scale enterprises, small producers. So it shouldn't scare you. So the first step is to ensure that your business is complying with those principles. And it's not a one-day event. It's a journey that you walk over a period of time. And as long as you're able to comply with the very core principles. And we encourage and invite enterprises that are interested in this process to get in touch with us.
Right.
The email address, I'm sure, is running on the screen, and log on to WFTO global website, and you should be able to get more information. But as you contact us, we should be able to reach out to you and provide you the information and work with you throughout the journey, and become a fair trade enterprise and be able to create this sort of impact that you want to create on people and also on the planet that's providing us with all the resources that we need to do this business.
I mean, and thanks for that. There's There's been a couple of studies that have been done out there, really looking at this idea of businesses resonating with their consumers, right? And there was something that had been done by Infotrack a few years ago, and there was also another one done by Euromonitor and also GlobeScan, and they were looking at trends across what they were terming middle income and actually it was mainly around middle income countries, which meant that Kenya was included. Anyway, so in this one, they were looking at the fact that it was young people who had a bit of mistrust around corporate brands, but had a very high trust in organizations that were looking at sustainability. And so it goes, you've mentioned that, Peter, that again, it's a business choice. There's the ability of people to greenwash or companies to greenwash. And so when you have something that is independently verifiable, then that way you're able to, to stand proud and be able to say, look at this and look at what it is that we're able to do. And we're not just the ones who are making this claim. This is something that has been independently verified. And the same young people also said that for them, it was important to do things that were good in the world. And so that for us is also the comfort of the fact that, we're looking at a very young continent. We're looking at a continent that is looking to grow, to reap the benefit of this youth dividend, that this youth dividend actually is ready to ask those questions. This young population of ours wants to know a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes, right? So it's not just like what you were saying, Musa. It's not just about just picking the product that's available to you, but it's also about asking the question about where can I get this, and how come you as the supermarket or the retailer don't have these particular products, and that your efforts can bring about that change that it is that you're looking for. So Musa, I would really want to hear a little bit more, because you fall into that young dividend, right? And tell us just your perspective as a consumer, not even as somebody who is part of WFTO, but just your perspective as a consumer when it comes to ethical sourcing.
Okay, first of all, before I do that, I was actually going to ask to jump in. I just want to say to those organizations that are looking to become WFTO certified that, it's not about you're joining and you already tick all the boxes. It's a journey. And as you go through the journey, you're going to make certain changes. And it's not a very scary thing, because like Bernard said, it's not totally foreign concept. Many a times as you get to interact with many business owners, they will tell you, but I don't align with this and I don't align with that at the moment. So I don't want to go through this process and get a no. So this is essentially just to say that process. It's not like when you come through the door, you have to have everything tick, 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 ready to go. No, it could take, some things can take a year to change.
Right.
It can take 2 years to change, and it's okay. The fact is that you are journeying towards being a better organization, which is a good thing. So this is just an encouragement to those organizations that feel like, I want to join, but I'm not really there yet. So it's okay. You will journey to it, and eventually you will get there and be a more ethical business, which is a great end goal. So to answer your question, I think as a young person, you want to, how can I put this? So, I mean, there's always been those talks of you need to leave something for the future generations. So as a young person, I want to be involved in something that's ensuring that my children's children are also going to get to experience this natural resource. So I would want to buy from an organization that takes care of natural resources, that considers its production processes to that ensures, its production processes are respecting the environment. I think we're more conscious in our buying decisions. We want to make decisions that make a greater impact. We're trying to be woke, in in everything that we do, and it's essential. Be woke, even in your buying decisions. Make a decision that's going to benefit people who are going to come much later than you.
Absolutely. And we have some comments from some young people. I'm loving this whole thing. It's good to be over 40. You get to call other people young. Although I think according to the World Health Organization, all of us on this panel are still youth. Because we're all under 65. It's true. It's true. 65? World Health Organization says youth is until 65. Wow. The AU says youth is until 35. I'm under the World Healthcare Organization.
Okay.
All right. But anyway, in any event, we have some that would fall under the AU category, and let's go ahead and hear from them what they were saying about this, just this whole piece around sustainable trade, and we'll read some of their comments. We're waiting for the screen share, and then we can read them out. Just a minute. There we go. So we had Masimbonge, the young farmer that I was telling you about. We had him ask some of his people on his social media pages some of these questions. How does fair trade and fair prices help in taking care of our environment? It was what you were alluding to, Musa, when you were saying that it's good to be woke in all areas. And this is what they had to say. And they said, by receiving a fair price for goods, producers are protected against fluctuation in the world market prices. That's great. There's another one who says fair prices encourage farmers to reduce use of toxic chemicals. I'm not sure what CA stands for, but it says CA is good for reducing land degradation and improvement of your soil conditions. I'm not sure. Is that lingo that you might know, Musa? If you help me.
No.
And then the last one, I'm not sure whether that's in, I don't know, is that in Zulu?
No, it's in English. Fair prices help farmers.
No, the last part. Fair prices help farmers not to use toxic chemicals on the soil. Then there's something else.
Kuba
something.
Oh, okay. Use toxic chemicals on soil. Guba beleka, e-profits, and fast cash. Okay, so that's closer. My Zulu is better than my Xhosa. I'll try. Guba beleka, e-profits, and fast cash. No, I don't even want to try. I could butcher it. I'm not sure.
Anyway, either way, the message is out there. It's all about
Peter knows better, maybe.
Fair prices and taking care of the environment, and that's where it is there. I think that Gandhi is the one who's often quoted for saying that there's enough in the world for everyone, but not enough for one man's greed. So I think that there's really, that says a lot. We really have to be stewards of the earth. I mean, look at what it is that we're going through right now, from climate change to global pandemics. A lot of these things are I think are also because of that consumption culture. But it is actually one of the SDGs, right, to have responsible consumption and also responsible production. And what's quite interesting is that those are the same SDG. And I think that it says quite a lot that those two are the different sides of the very same coin. Peter, it would be good to hear your take on that.
Oh, no, they are definitely. I mean, essentially, it comes down to we have finite resources, both from an environmental point of view, and whether you're producing food, whether you're producing fabric, the resources are finite, and you also need to leave something for the next generation. We can't use everything, but similarly with consumption, it is about responsible consumption. We went through a period, the world in general, and that is where the whole thing in terms of paying a fair price comes in. If you're paying $2 for a T-shirt, you can buy one 5 times a week should you choose to. And I unfortunately have known of people who tend to do that. It's cheaper to throw it away than to actually go to the laundromat and wash it and iron it and whatever else again. And you have to think of yourself. I mean, we were talking earlier about the Kiswahili word on your coat of arms. In South Africa, there's the concept of Ubuntu, which encompasses that as well, is that if you have enough, you take what you need and you pass on to the next person who does not have enough. And in that sense, the whole community eventually has enough to survive and to thrive. And I think that encapsulates what fair trade is about. If you are, Musa earlier mentioned the thing of, yes, if you're buying a T-shirt for 10 Rand or 12 Rand in the South African context, the person that makes it probably gets 10 or 20 cents. You have to think before you make that choice of purchasing. If that was my mother or my father or my brother or my sister that is the maker, would I be happy with them earning 10 cents or 20 cents for each T-shirt that they make? And that is the decision that you as the consumer has to make. But that is also the responsible decision to make. We all know what things cost. We all know how much time it takes to make a product. And the reality there is just think before you buy. Think before you use a natural resource irresponsibly. Because there are ways, fortunately, in the way that we live and technology has developed, education, information is available everywhere at our fingertips. We are empowered to be able to make those choices, both whether you manufacture the thing and the methodology that you use, as well as the consumption side. So it completely ties in with the SDGs. And fair trade certainly feeds into most of the SDGs. And if you go compare our principles compared to that, it's a perfect meshing.
It's true.
Just
it is.
Becoming a responsible citizen in whichever country you happen to live.
Absolutely. And it's this year's Nobel Peace Prize went to the World Food Program, right?
Yes.
Because of all the work that they're doing in trying to eradicate hunger. Right. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who happens to be working there, and that whole thing came up again, that it's, in order for, I think as a globe, we're producing enough to feed the world. Yeah, it is possible to eradicate hunger in our lifetimes, but it's in the how that makes all the difference. And that is really and truly part of today's conversation. It's the how. How are we continuing with sustainable businesses? How are we continuing with, the growth that is needed in order for business to continue, in order for sustainable livelihoods to continue? But it's also very possible to produce sustainably. It's very possible to continue to thrive. Indeed, as Turkle Trading has been thriving with a people-centered approach. With people, how did you put it, Peter? I like what you said. You said, people first, planet, profit will give you shared prosperity, right? As long as we remember to put the people first, it's very possible to still achieve prosperity, but to do so with stewardship principles behind what it is that we're doing. And I'm going to just throw it back to Bernard for a little bit, because you've been working with WFTO for some time. You have all these different people that within the fair trade movement. And if we're sort of looking beyond that and looking beyond those who already know what fair trade is about, what would you say to those people who feel that, yes, I can make some kind of difference. I'm not sure where to find these fair trade products, but how can I make this difference? How can I make these purchasing decisions that are that that are putting people and planet first? What advice would you have for our consumers out there?
I think we already having a conversation about building back better or fair. I think is in better, and
Yes.
and I think part of what needs to happen is to engage at two different spaces. I think one of the
Right
is at the policy level, because you require an enabling environment within which this conversation can be supported. But secondly, I think we also need to engage even more aggressively in the consumer space, because if you're thinking about fair trade or social enterprises or cooperatives, solidarity economies, ecology, or the sort of economy that will carry all of us, I think what is important is to begin to make this look like the everyday norm. So that is not an isolated sort of encounter that you come across once in a while, and so that will take the policy space getting it right, but it also take the consumer space getting involved, and I think we already made a reference to young people, and I think that's where the greatest change will have to take place, not just because they're young, but because of the numbers. And so ultimately, I think for us as a movement, I think we need to get in those two spaces, even as we engage with social enterprises or business enterprises to embrace these sort of practices.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the difference will come.
Okay. I see that we're having some comments coming in, and Trading for Development, welcome back. And we also have something from Frederick Masinde, and Frederick is saying, profits is key to any business health, sustainability, but the most important question is, how do we use those profits gained? Do we use them to invest back with people who supported in generating them? All fair trade businesses ensure that people equally benefit on the gains of trade. And, Peter, if you would just jump in and talk about that, because you're the businessman here. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, I agree fully with what Fred is saying. I think some people get the idea, which say people over profit, that, no, well, you don't run a profitable business. You can run a bad business and still be a fair trade business. That is not it at all. If you go look at what the word sustainability means, then it means you have to run a sustainable business that is growing, that is successful, whatever. But it is the choice of how you use the profit. Do you stick it all in your own pocket as the founder or the owner or the whatever, or do you say, let's use the profit to create good for a larger number of people? One of the videos we saw about New Hope in the area of Manenberg, where they are based, there's a saying there that says, make the circle bigger. And I think that is what fair trade is, and that is how you use the profits, is to make the circle bigger so that more and more people get the benefit of it and get the opportunities to basically have a decent life, being able to take care of their families. And that is essentially what fair trade is all about, is to create opportunities for people that for one reason or another have a disadvantage, whether it is economic, whether it is political, whether it's education. So it is definitely not, I just want to make sure people do not get the idea that we're saying, well, no, you don't have to be profitable. That's not fair trade. Fair trade means you are profitable, but you also care for people at the same time, and you use your profits wisely.
There was something that Rain had said in our other conversation, and she said, if you look at the price and it's too low, there's a problem. If you look at the price and it's too high, there's also a problem, because there's somewhere along that way where that margin is being squeezed to, somebody's being squeezed out of that margin, and somebody else is benefiting over and above, and an equitable share of that margin. And I thought that was also a very practical way of helping you think about it, in that moment when you want to purchase something. But I really like what you've said about making the circle bigger. I'm going to have to tweet about that. I'm not active on these other pages, but I am on Twitter, so I'm gonna put that one, Peter. I'm gonna put it there with your permission. It's your tweetable tweet for making the circle bigger. I mean, I really like that that idea of that there is enough, and that if we can get more and more people into this fair trade circle, then more and more people will benefit, whether it's as profitable businesses that are doing work well, or whether in all the supply chains that come along with it, or whether it's us as consumers and the choices that we're making. If we can make that circle bigger, if we can influence those who are close to us to be a bit more conscious about those choices. And it is something that we had talked about in our other conversations, but I think it calls to be reiterated that that we can make I really like that we can make our circle bigger. There's enough to make the circle bigger. It's possible to make the circle bigger. And I'm looking at our time, and it's almost time for our parting shots. Our very last parting shots, my goodness. So Bernard, we're gonna start with you. Give us your very last parting shot. This is it. Unless you call us for another series, and then we can have parting shots for those ones.
I think we will extend. Of course, I mean, COVID has been such a terrible experience for many of fair trade enterprises, just like any other businesses across the globe. And we have seen quite a lot of innovation by the members. I mean, enterprises that were producing baskets all of a sudden started producing masks, and just to innovate and to keep people on the job and provide livelihoods that are required. So and a crisis like this will continue. At least not the last one for us. I mean, I think there will be it's part of our lives. And even as we move forward, I think part of the conversation is how do we build or rebuild better, and also be prepared for the next crisis as businesses. And part of the reason we're having this conversation is to be part of that process of building better. And consumers are looking for markets, and we think that beyond our traditional markets, I think we want to see market grow next door. And so when COVID comes, then you're able to sell to the next neighbor. And so that's what we're looking forward to going forward in the next conversation. This is just a beginning. And we think this is a conversation that we are going to have not just for Kenya and South Africa, but for the rest of the continent. And we invite everyone to be part of this journey and grow that circle bigger. Absolutely.
And before I ask Peter to jump in, I'm just reading a comment here for Trading for Development, and they're talking a little bit about what you had mentioned, Bernard, around the need to change policies. And they're saying, do we have laws that look after artisans? Those who remain invisible because they're not formalized and therefore are left out without rights. That's also something that we should continue as part of this conversation. You did talk about the fact that, the policy conversations are there to, need to continue to happen. And I think it goes to what Peter was saying. Can we make that circle bigger? Can we make that circle of policy influences bigger? So that then, you can have some of these things formalized, and you can have these legal safety nets and guidelines that are put in place. So I'm going to throw it to Peter to give us his parting shot.
Thanks. Yeah. Just to talk on that one quickly, I think that's why as well the word the concept is fair and trade. The fair part looks after policies and tackles the unfairness where it does exist. And the trade side says, let's use trade and economic activity as the way of changing the circumstances of people. Lastly, I would just say, and we've mentioned it before, in times of crisis, that is when families need to pull together, stand together, and in most cases, that is what happens. And it's the same with the fair trade community. This is what this COVID crisis pandemic has shown us, is that it then does the strength of that family, that you are not alone, that you have people from all over the world that are part of this movement, that see, how can we help? You have it worse than us, so let's help on your side, vice versa. But as well, it's a sharing of information, it's a sharing of resources. And that is where the strength of being part of this family of World Fair Trade Organization lies, is that you are never alone.
Absolutely.
And that is where the circle, where you pull people in. It's not an exclusion, it's you make it inclusive, where you bring more and more people into it, and they get the support and help from the other members that are just in the same situation as themselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for that, Peter. Musa, are you going to give us your parting shot?
I'm going to sound like a broken record. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, be your brother's keeper. Exercise the power that you have as a consumer. Educate yourself on what you're buying. Know what you're buying, what value it has, and what impact it has. Choose to do better. Choose to impact someone else's life positively. In South Africa, we're facing very high unemployment rates. And one way in which we can help deal with this or lower this unemployment is by ensuring that there's more sustainable jobs. So where you can, choose to buy local, choose to buy sustainable, choose to buy environmentally safe. You know, make conscious decisions as you buy. You have power as a consumer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much to everybody who has tuned in today. I see Sylvain is back. Hi, Sylvain. Thank you to everybody who's been listening over the last 6 episodes, and those who will be watching this after we're done with the live session. I think that it's, I'm going to quote a friend of mine called Nuru Mogambi. And she's the one who introduced me to this word. It's a Greek word, and it means kairos, right? And kairos is about an opportune moment, right? This is the kairos moment for the fair trade movement. It's the kairos moment for the world, because here is the opportune moment to do things different, the opportune moment to build back better, the opportune moment to unlock what could be one of the biggest trading blocks in the world, which is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And what does that mean for all of these fair trade businesses and enterprises that are on the continent? What does that mean for the 1.2 billion consumers that are going to be part of this continental free trade area? So really and truly, this is the time for us to build back better, to build back with the future in mind. Yeah, so that we end up being more resilient, as what Bernard was talking about, that these businesses are able to they have the agility and the ability to bounce back when the next crisis hits, because it's not a matter of if, it's really a matter of when. But if we have put the foundation in place, then there is, then it'll be something that will be able to weather so much better. And as what Peter said, we'll be able to weather this so much better if we're doing this together. And if we pull in the consumers that Musa is always reminding us, that we have this power as consumers to be able to effect the change that we're looking for, then certainly this ends up being, we'll have taken full advantage of this Kairos moment as we're building back from the COVID pandemic. I just want to say thank you to Bernard and Musa and World Fair Trade Organization, Africa, Middle East for just starting this series. I think it's been amazing. We're over our time today. I guess it's our last one, so you guys will forgive us. And watch the video and remember to choose fair trade, right? Because that means fair prices, fair treatment, and it means that you're putting people first. Thank you.
Majina naitwa Jones Nguli, Nimefanya ukulima kwa miaka 20 na hii kampuni imenisaidia sana, na nashukuru kwa hii kampuni kwa vile imenifanya hata nimeinuka kwa mambo mingi. Hii factory ya Mukuyuni imenisaidia, ikiwa nahitaji pesa wakinipatia, naweza enda nilimishe mashamba yangu, na hata ikiwa nilikuwa nimelemewa na school fees na naenda nalipa. Mtoto wa kwanza nimesomesha mpaka university. Mtoto wa kwanza, na iko mwingine amemaliza form 4, mwingine form 4 akamaliza, na ule wa last born saa hii anamaliza college ya walimu.
My name is Shaida. I choose fair trade.
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 We are New Hope Cooperative and we choose fair trade.